Behind the spotlight, Agnetha Fältskog lived a life full of ups and downs. Love tragedy, loneliness, and agoraphobia pushed her into seclusion for many years. What made Agnetha leave the stage? Is this a tragic end to a legend? Let's explore this emotional story. Childhood and path to music. Agnetha Fältskog was born on 5th April 1950 in Jönköping, Sweden, into a middle-class family who loved the arts. Her father, Knut Ingvar Fältskog, was a local event organizer who regularly organized music and entertainment shows. Her mother, Birgit Margareta Johansson, was a devoted housewife who always supported her daughter in pursuing her passion for music. From a very young age, Agnetha showed a special musical talent. At the age of 6, she began composing simple melodies on the family piano. Her father, recognizing her talent, encouraged her to perform at small local events. Under his guidance, Agnetha soon became familiar with the stage and developed a love for singing. At the age of 10, she began formal piano lessons and joined the local church choir. Her years of musical training in the church helped Agnetha hone her vocal technique and develop an emotional performance style. This period also shaped her musical tastes, with artists such as Connie Francis and Petula Clark being major influences. Despite her strong passion for music, Agnetha's childhood was not entirely uneventful. Her mother suffered from depression, a condition that had a profound impact on the family. She also often felt more lonely and sensitive than other children her age. These feelings were later reflected in her emotional compositions. At the age of 15, Agnetha began writing more serious songs and joined a local band called the Cambers, where she sang lead vocals. The group performed at small events in Jönköping and the surrounding areas. Although the band did not last long, the experience introduced Agnetha to professional recording and performing. Agnetha's first big break came in 1967, when a demo of hers landed in the hands of producer Carl Gerhard Lundqvist, who was scouting young talent in Sweden. Impressed by the 17-year-old's powerful voice and songwriting ability, Lundqvist immediately signed Agnetha to Capitol Records. That same year, she released her debut single, Jag var så kär I used to love, an emotional ballad she had written herself. The song was an instant hit, topping the Swedish charts and establishing Agnetha as one of the country's most promising young singers. This success was all the more remarkable considering that she was only 17 and had no experience performing professionally on a large scale. In the following years, Agnetha continued to release successful singles such as Utan dig, Mitt liv går vidare and Försonade, cementing her reputation in the Swedish music scene. Critics began to compare her to famous domestic singers such as Lil Babs and Annie Frid Lyngstad, who later became a member of ABBA. However, unlike them, Agnetha was not only a singer, but also a talented songwriter, writing most of her songs. Despite her success in her home country, Agnetha's career remained largely uncharted internationally. Her music was mainly released in Swedish, limiting her reach. But it was during this period that fate arranged for her to meet Björn Ulvaeus, a young musician and producer who would later not only become her husband, but also the important half of ABBA's songwriting duo. Career peak. Agnetha Fältskog's life and career took a new turn when she met Björn Ulvaeus, a musician and member of the Hootenanny Singers, in 1969. Agnetha was already a famous solo singer in Sweden, while Björn was also enjoying success with folk music. They met at a music event and immediately felt a musical and romantic connection. They began dating soon after, and in July 1971, they were married in a wedding that attracted much attention from the Swedish media. After their marriage, Agnetha and Björn collaborated frequently on music. At that time, Björn worked with another talented musician, Benny Andersson, a member of the Hep Stars, and Benny's girlfriend, Annie Frid Lyngstad, a prominent Swedish singer. At first, The four were simply close friends, experimenting with some music together. However, when they realized the wonderful harmony in Agnetha and Annie Fried's voices, they began to think about forming an official group, rock and folk music. However, the initial success of some of their songs encouraged them to pursue a more professional path. In 1973, they decided to change their name to ABBA, taking the first 4 letters of each member's name. This was the turning point that marked the beginning of one of the most legendary bands in the history of world music. The most important turning point came in 1974 when ABBA entered the Eurovision Song Contest with the song Waterloo. The song had a vibrant pop style, completely different from previous traditional entries. With an energetic performance and catchy melody, Waterloo helped ABBA win the contest and quickly became a huge hit worldwide. This was the first time a Swedish group had achieved such success, transforming them from a domestic band to a global phenomenon. Although ABBA was a duo of 2 female vocalists, Agnetha's voice was undeniably instrumental to the group's success. She had a bright, powerful, yet soulful soprano voice, which perfectly carried both melancholy ballads and upbeat pop songs. One of the most notable ABBA songs that showcased Agnetha's outstanding vocals was The Winner Takes It All, 1980. The song is deeply personal, telling the story of a woman's pain after a breakup, and many believe it reflects the breakdown of Agnetha and Björn's marriage. Agnetha's vocals on the song are emotional and powerful, making it one of ABBA's best. Her voice also shined on other hits such as Dancing Queen, Knowing Me, Knowing You, Take a Chance on Me, and Chiquitita. Agnetha often took the lead vocals in songs with deeper and more introspective colors, while Annie Fried was more inclined to lively and energetic songs. The combination of these 2 voices is the element that creates the characteristic ABBA style that no other group can copy. After the success of Waterloo, ABBA continued to release hit albums and quickly became one of the best-selling groups of all time. Some of the group's notable achievements include the album Arrival, 1976, with the hit Dancing Queen, the song that became synonymous with ABBA and became one of the immortal songs of the 20th century. The album 1977, had hits such as Take a Chance on Me and The Name of the Game. The album Voulez-Vous, 1979, marked a shift towards disco music, with songs such as Gimme, 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 A Man After Midnight, and Voulez-Vous. The album Super Trooper, 1980, with the song The Winner Takes It All, is one of ABBA's best ballads. ABBA was not only successful in Europe, but also conquered the markets of the US, Australia, and Japan. They organized grand tours, attracting hundreds of thousands of spectators. In total, the group has sold over 385 million records worldwide, making it one of the best-selling bands in history. Despite their resounding success, personal tensions were growing within ABBA. Behind the scenes, tensions within ABBA. From the outside, ABBA always radiated the image of a united and professional band. But behind that aura, personal tensions between the members gradually accumulated, especially in the relationship between Agnetha Faltskog and Björn Ulvaeus. Agnetha and Björn were once a beautiful couple in the Swedish music scene. However, in the late 1970s, cracks began to appear in their marriage. Their busy work schedules left them little time for each other. Björn was an extrovert who loved to party and socialize, while Agnetha was an introvert who loved quiet and spent time with her family. This difference became more and more obvious as ABBA became more famous and the pressure from work increased. In addition, the frequent touring and filming made it difficult for Agnetha to balance her personal life and work. In particular, after giving birth to her first daughter, Linda Ulvaeus, in 1973, and her son Christian Ulvaeus in 1977, she found it extremely difficult to be away from her children for long periods. Agnetha once shared in an interview that, "I love my children more than anything. Being away from them for so long makes me feel empty." In addition to family pressure, there were rumors that Björn had started having other relationships when the couple's feelings for each other faded. This deeply hurt Agnetha. The two often argued, and there were times when they could not talk to each other for long periods. These conflicts gradually became irreparable, and by 1979, they announced their separation. In January 1980, Agnetha and Björn officially divorced, ending nearly a decade of musical and personal togetherness. Remarkably, despite no longer being married, they continued to work together in ABBA. However, this was not easy. The tension between Agnetha and Björn was most evident when ABBA recorded the song "The Winner Takes It All" in 1980. It is a heartbreaking ballad about a breakup in which the woman is left lonely and hurt, while the man seems to have quickly overcome his pain. Although Björn insists that the song is not based entirely on their divorce, many believe that it was his confession after breaking up with Agnetha. Interestingly, Agnetha herself sang the song, leading many to believe that she was singing about her pain. While recording the song, Agnetha burst into tears several times in the studio. The producer had to ask her to stop so she could calm down. However, the final recording perfectly captured the pain and intensity of the song, making it one of ABBA's biggest hits. After their divorce, Björn quickly remarried another woman in 1981, which caused Agnetha even more heartache. Although she did not express it much in the media, she admitted that this made her feel betrayed. Although they continued to perform with ABBA, it was clear that their relationship was no longer the same. During performances, Agnetha and Björn rarely interacted with each other. Agnetha even tried to avoid Björn's eyes on stage. When appearing in front of the press, they maintained a professional attitude, but no longer showed the closeness they had before. Not only Agnetha and Björn, but also Benny Andersson and Annie Fried Lyngstad had problems in their relationships. They got married in 1978, but divorced in 1981. The separation of both couples in the group made the atmosphere in ABBA more tense than ever. In addition, work pressure and changes in musical trends also contributed to increasing internal tensions. Although they continued to release quality products, the members gradually felt exhausted. In particular, Agnetha increasingly felt tired of the life of a pop star. She always wanted to have a simple life with her family and children, instead of having to constantly tour and face the spotlight. In 1982, ABBA recorded some new songs, but no longer felt as enthusiastic as before. They never officially announced their breakup, but after their final performance on the Late Late Breakfast Show on December 11, 1982, ABBA ceased to be active. Each member went their separate ways, but none of them achieved the same level of success as they had in ABBA. ABBA's breakup was not due to a major argument or acrimony, but rather the result of years of stress, pressure, and changes in the members' personal lives. Despite the breakup, they maintained a professional relationship and cherished what they had built together over nearly a decade of glory. Life after ABBA. In addition to her career struggles, Agnetha also faced many personal tragedies, which made her increasingly withdrawn from the outside world. One of the events that had a great impact on Agnetha was a car accident that occurred in 1983. While driving on a road in Sweden, Agnetha had an accident that caused her car to skid off the road and fall into a ditch. Although she was not seriously injured physically, the psychological shock from this accident left a deep mark on her mind. After the accident, Agnetha began to develop a fear of traveling by car, especially when traveling on crowded roads or highways. She also became more anxious when traveling long distances, which made her solo career even more difficult, as she could not comfortably tour or participate in international music events. In 1994, Agnetha faced another great loss when her mother, Birgit Fältskog, died after falling from a high-rise hospital window. The police ruled it a suicide, but the family could not explain the real cause behind her death. Agnetha was deeply saddened by her mother's sudden passing. She once shared that her mother was the one who had always been by her side, encouraging and supporting her throughout her career. Her death caused Agnetha to fall into severe depression, causing her to become more and more withdrawn. Shortly after, Agnetha's father also passed away, leaving her feeling completely emotionally deprived. This was one of the most difficult times in her life. From the 1990s, Agnetha began to show signs of agoraphobia, a psychological syndrome that causes the sufferer to feel afraid of being in public places or crowded places. She began to refuse media appearances, avoided music events, and had little contact with the outside world. Newspaper articles at the time described Agnetha as a reclusive queen, living a life of seclusion on a small island in Sweden, where she spent most of her time tending horses, walking in the woods, and enjoying the peace. Agnetha's fear of crowds also caused her to refuse all offers to reunite ABBA for many years. While Benny and Björn continued to make music and work on ABBA-related projects, Agnetha largely disappeared from the entertainment industry. However, she still quietly followed the careers of the other members and always had fond memories of her time with ABBA. But with the loss, trauma and fear growing, Agnetha almost completely closed herself off throughout the 90s and early 2000s. Along with her tragedies and agoraphobia, Agnetha Fältskog also had to deal with a haunting story that had lasted for decades: her haunting relationship with Dutch fanatic Gert van der Graaf. This was not just a simple case of overzealous fandom, but a story of obsession, stalking, and fear that lasted for years, making Agnetha even more withdrawn. The haunting love affair with Gert van der Graaf. Gert van der Graaf, born in 1963 in the Netherlands, had been a huge fan of ABBA since he was a child. But his admiration for Agnetha was more than just a crush on an idol. It gradually turned into an unhealthy obsession, leading him to spend most of his life stalking her. As early as the 1970s, when ABBA was at the peak of its popularity, Gert spent all his time collecting photos, articles, and any information related to Agnetha. He dreamed of meeting and marrying his idol. As an adult, Gert even learned Swedish just so he could move to Agnetha's country. In 1996, after years of trying, he moved to Eckerö, a quiet area on the outskirts of Stockholm, where Agnetha was living. In the late 1990s, Gert van der Graaf somehow approached Agnetha and made her trust him. At that time, Agnetha had been living in seclusion for many years, away from the media and the spotlight. She was also quite lonely, especially after the great losses in her life. Perhaps because of that, she gave Gert a chance, and the two began a strange relationship. Although Agnetha never publicly acknowledged the affair, many sources say that they dated for a short time. However, things quickly turned scary when Gert revealed his obsessive and controlling nature. He wanted Agnetha all to himself, constantly monitoring her every move and showing extreme jealousy. Gert not only obsessed over her every move, but also tried to control her life by constantly showing up around the house, calling and sending letters. Gradually, Agnetha realized Gert's true nature and decided to cut off all contact. But instead of accepting the truth, Gert became more and more out of control. After Agnetha rejected him, Gert van der Graaf became even more obsessed with her. He began creepily stalking her, appearing around her house every day, even standing outside her window for hours just to look inside. Not stopping there, Gert sent hundreds of letters in the hope of convincing Agnetha to come back to him. When he was ignored, he became more persistent, constantly knocking on her door and even trying to break in. The situation became more serious, forcing Agnetha to report to the police to protect herself. In 2003, After years of being followed and harassed, Gert van der Graaf was officially arrested and convicted of stalking. A Swedish court ordered him to be deported to the Netherlands and banned him from returning to Sweden for 2 years. It seemed like the nightmare was over, but the reality was not that simple. Shortly after the ban ended, Gert van der Graaf returned to Sweden and continued to appear near Agnetha's home. In 2005, he was spotted wandering around the area where she lived, despite knowing full well that this action could lead to his arrest again. Gert repeatedly tried to approach Agnetha, leaving her in constant fear. The Swedish media even captured images of him standing from a distance, silently looking at her villa, a haunting scene. In response to this situation, the Swedish police continued to closely monitor Gert's actions, and eventually, he was deported back to the Netherlands once again. Since then, there has been no information that Gert continued to stalk Agnetha, but this incident left a big shadow on the singer's life, causing her to become more and more withdrawn. After years of seclusion, Agnetha Fältskog surprised the public with the release of her solo album A in 2013. But how effective was it? Did she regain her former glory? 6. A surprising but quiet comeback. This was the first time in 26 years that she returned to the studio to record a full album. Produced by Jörgen Elofsson, a famous musician who has collaborated with many international artists. The album has a pop style mixed with a bit of nostalgia, true to the color that fans have loved in her voice. The title track, When You Loved Someone, received many positive responses from critics and fans, with the MV impressing with nostalgic images of a past love. The album ranked quite well on music charts, reaching the top 10 in Sweden, the UK, and some other European countries. However, A is not a huge commercial success compared to what Agnetha has achieved in the past. Although considered a well-crafted and quality product, Agnetha did not conduct a promotional tour or have many media activities. She only appeared in a few small interviews, then retreated to a private life like before. This makes this comeback, although attracting attention, still quite quiet, true to her personality after many life events. In 2021, after nearly 40 years of disbandment, ABBA suddenly announced their reunion and released the album Voyage. This was a shocking event in the music industry because, before that, the members all affirmed that they had no plans to reunite. The album includes 10 new songs, imbued with ABBA's classic style, but more refined with modern production technology. Agnetha, despite not being very active in music, decided to join Benny Andersson, Björn Ulvaeus, and Annie Fried Lyngstad to create this special project. Songs like I Still Have Faith in You and Don't Shut Me Down were loved by both the old generation of fans and the younger audience. Despite the reunion, Agnetha maintained her private life. She only recorded with the group and hardly appeared in promotional events. Even when ABBA announced the ABBA Voyage show, a show using avatar technology instead of performing live, Agnetha was not present at any of the premieres. This made her image even more mysterious in the public eye. Agnetha's return to ABBA was not a grand comeback, as many expected, but a gentle but meaningful milestone, affirming her love for music and the legendary group that made her name. What do you think of Agnetha Fältskog's return to ABBA after nearly 40 years? Did you like the Voyage album? And which track from it stuck with you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you and see you in the next videos.